and we just kind of hang out and let folks
Come
let
on
us
in.
make sure that we're streaming correctly and that all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. Conscious Awakening Network has a new website. Have you seen it,
I
Christopher?
have not.
It's dope as shit. I believe, yeah. And you can totally cuss here if you want. It's just like our
Okay,
shit.
cool.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just getting streaming here. Welcome to Expanding Awakening. Here with the great and powerful Christopher the Astromedium. Holy shit.
Holy
For the
shit.
Astromedium. Here's you this. How you feeling?
Well, everything I've been working in my life up to this point has been leading to the moment that someone would call me the great and powerful.
Yeah,
The little kid who used to wear his mom's glittery red shoes and click them together and say,
100%.
"There's no place like home," has been waiting for this moment my whole life.
Well, welcome to it, my friend. The great and powerful Christopher the Astromedium. Super excited to have you. You're a dear friend. You're a brother, your family. You've come out here to the ranch and spent time with my wife and I.
Yes.
We've considered you family from many other lifetimes as well, and just to see you grow just over the couple years that I've known you and that we've known each other in this lifetime has just been such a tremendous change. It's just been a joy to watch you grow like you have. So, if you don't mind, just for everybody out there unfamiliar with you, let's introduce yourself for everybody, and then we're gonna get to some really dope shit tonight and let everybody know who you really are.
Very cool. My name is Christopher with a Y, also known as the Astromedium, and I am a Chyronic Healer. That's based off the word Chiron, and Chyronic healers are astrologers, teachers, and basically multidimensional shamans of the fifth density, if you will. Always say "if you will" because it's a mouthful, but it's a new version of a shamanic energy. And I am a plant medicine facilitator. I am an ascension guide. So I help light workers, starseeds, shadow workers, empaths integrate their awakening process and go through the ascension process with ease and grace and power. I own StarDust Retreat Center here outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm also the creator of MycroDose, which is a microdosing line. There are 5 blends. So there's many things that I offer, from classes, retreats, ceremonies, experiences, one-to-one coaching, readings. There's many things that I do, but it all encompasses in raising the vibration, in empowering people and healing people on a multidimensional level.
Well, it does. And the way that you encompass everything that you do, I've just, like I said, seen you grow so much. So you started at one doing readings, actually. The first time you and I got together, it just all of a sudden something came in after you and I had already gotten off of our official recorded call there. And then we spoke for another hour and a half, something like that. And I was just
Yeah.
blown away by this. It'd been the first time that I'd ever encountered that. And so I'm stepping into a new world. I'm new and I'm like, yeah, I'm expanding my reality. And all of a sudden somebody just goes, hang on, mid sentence just switches and something else was there with us, and it was, I mean, something familiar, and I got a lot of insight out of it, and it's just interesting, like I
Was
said, to
there a
watch you.
grandparent there?
There's
There's one
definitely
now.
see, yeah, yeah. Well,
I don't remember
Gma is
anything I say
always
to
with
you all
me.
in readings and whatever I do when I do that Teresa Caputo thing. I don't remember that always, but there is a grandparent here. It is both grandmother and grandfather, but the grandmother's coming in very strong.
Yeah, it's Gma. That's Gma represent. I love that woman. She and
She's
I,
cute.
dude, she's a button. Like,
Yes, she's like
so
cute.
cute. Yeah.
Yes.
She is with us, and thank you. So, Grandma Gma, shout, represent, welcome. It's
Yeah,
good
we're
to
going to
see you.
let them all in. We're going to let them in. We're going to let the angels in. We're going to let the extra dimensionals in, the ascended masters. Let's play.
I want people let in on the inside of how you get your clothes. That shirt, dude, represent. I want the link. I would love to own a twinsies version of that, and then just wear it often.
So, I actually manifested this. I put it on my vision board, and it just showed up my door one day, and I was like, "This shirt is perfect for me." I don't want you to know where I got it.
That's fair. All right, yeah, it's like the glasses in Seinfeld. I get
No,
it.
I actually don't
Yeah.
remember where I got it. I was just online looking at T-shirts and stuff like that, and I found it, and I thought, you know what? This is my new style.
Well, you're rocking the shit out of it, honestly. Everything top down. So I want to know for the audience here, your first experience with what I affectionately refer to as the freaky woo woo. You know, whenever you got your first glimpse, perhaps, that there was a program installed from your parents, from the ego structures around you that do well to serve you right, to keep you from stepping out in front of buses and whatnot. Perhaps not so much for the connection of other side and the unexplainable from their perspective. So, first bit of freaky woo woo that you remember just sort of pushing you in a new direction.
I was 5 years old, and I was raised on horror movies, you know, Karloff and Vincent Price and The Exorcist at 6 years old. What the hell were they thinking? And you know, Halloween. And I grew up with horror movies. The movies that bothered me the most were ghosts. So although that was happening to me and I was being watched when I was sleeping, I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was making it up. I thought they were just from the movies. I never really attributed it to being something real. Yeah, I was so scared of it like it was real. Um, so that happened at a very early age, but it was 11 when I had my first spiritual awakening, if you will. And that kind of blew the lid off of everything and that set the tone for the rest of this to occur.
Are you like okay seeing ghosts? Like if they just pop
No,
out of nowhere? Okay.
no,
And do you see them that way though, to where they
no,
just okay?
no. And I would not do this if I did.
Yeah, right. I think
Also,
what
that takes a lot of energy for them to materialize like that, or with you. It's an agreement they're making with you. The energy is there, but a lot of it for it to materialize like that, um, for for it to be that visual or that visceral, that's actually lower vibrating. There's a lot of people who are psychics and mediums. They think, oh well, I don't see them like other people see them. I don't see dead people walking around, and that first of all, that does not a medium and a psychic make. And also you're creating that image of them. That's just the person who can see them that way. It isn't that they're extra psychic or extra medium. They are, that is the way that their perception is wanting to interface with that being. And I choose not to interface with that being that way. And I do because of movies, I'm sure, and other lifetimes, have a fear around that. Um, Nobody wants to feel when they're in their home by themselves like they're not alone, and I already feel that way. If it was physically manifested, it would traumatize me,
yeah,
and they know
right.
that. They know that. That's not safe. They don't. Some people agree to that for some reason, but that is not a goal.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, while you're driving or just something carrying a dish, you know, from one room to the other, and at Thanksgiving, and then this thing just decides to come in and like be crossed over. It's not sustainable. You're right.
So you ask, when you're asking me that question, you're talking about seeing them as a full body apparition, yes?
As me not an experiencer in the way that you are, for me to be able to articulate how you visualize something, that's where I'm at with it. I'm like, how do you see this stuff? Is it like in the
Uh,
movie where it pops up, like with that
okay.
Jennifer Love Hewitt? Remember that show? And she just had these things like showing up
Yes,
everywhere. Okay. Is
yes.
that
So
exactly
it's a
how it
little
is?
bit like that. It happens on the inside of my mind. It feels like an imagination sometimes. Sometimes I can see it um, behind my eyes when I close my eyes, kind of like a psychedelic experience, or when
Yeah.
you're trying to go to sleep, or when you see faces. This is all psychics know exactly what I'm talking about. And um, I also see things out here, but I see spirits as orbs, sparkly things, wisps of light. I'm good with that. It
Yeah.
already can freak me out, or like I know that they're not there with me in the room impeding on my physical space. But when you become aware of not being alone, which I am all the time, I have to become aware of it because if there's this feeling or this sensation, that's already uncomfortable enough.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So it's not like in the movies. I mean, obviously, I know that this is a
Some
silly
people can
smashing
see them that
paradigm,
way, yes. Some
but
people
you do
do
not
see them
because
that way. I
because
do
it
not.
wouldn't be productive, right? Because it would freak you out too damn much. It's not it's counterproductive for them to show up that way. And unnecessary because you can perceive them in all the other ways and you know that the message is received that way.
So, Spirit has also showed me that I will be seeing them at some point in this lifetime. I'm just not ready for that.
So
I'm
that's
not
the
ready for that.
question. Are you like working up to that? Is that something
No,
that okay.
I do not look forward to that. Now, if it was my mom that came to me, um, that would be different. But still, when she passes away and she comes and visits me, like my grandmother told me from the time I was a little kid, that she saw her father walking through her room, through the wall after his funeral. And I always thought how traumatizing that would be. And it scared her so bad. But of course, that was her dad, and it felt really good for her. And I know I'd be okay, but I haven't. That is not something I want to experience. And if there is a trauma within me that is causing that response for me, or if there's a blockage, I'm totally open to move through that, because also I have an agreement with extra dimensional beings, and I have told them that I am working up to being able to withstand and be in their presence. And that's actually a little less terrifying to me, actually. I don't know why, but it's still terrifying. So that sort of thing I'm going to have to get over at some point too. Um, I think my human just needs to move past that, but that's not something I look forward to or feel is necessary to happen, because if I can see you in here and get it in here, that's actually where you are anyway. That's
Yeah.
where they really are. What I'm getting inside here is just as psychic as if it showed up out here in the Matrix.
One is Pat Mahan talks about, and we've talked about quite a bit. It's not about the thing that you're presented with; it's about the other thing, the deeper thing. So perhaps being presented with this, even though now you have apprehension towards it, being presented with it is not about the fact that you'll see them in physical. It's about that you're ready to do that, meaning that it'll be something way cooler, right? It's
Yes,
that
yes.
or something better.
Yes, if there's something blocking me from seeing and I'm supposed to see, I'm going to claim it right now to open that if that is meant to be.
Mm.
But I also don't look forward to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm rooting you on. I believe in you. And if it ever happens and it freaks you the fuck out, just call me.
I
Okay.
would love to be okay with that, but I don't think any of you would be okay with sitting on your couch and someone who you don't know or don't recognize or do recognize suddenly walking around you or being in the space with you. That to me is an invasion of privacy as well.
No, this is what I'm saying. Like, it's like the contact phenomena, the abductions more specifically than the people that are calling it in willingly, as far as the contact goes. But it
And
feels sort of the same invasion of privacy, doesn't it?
it is an invasion of privacy. And when I have been pulled up into a ship in dream time, I have had to have very serious conversations with myself in the dream, lucid, to keep my eyes closed, so that they didn't know I was awake. And even if they did know I was awake, to keep my eyes closed, just so it could be a slow process, because I did get a glimpse of what one of them looked like. It was a flash, and it was frightening.
Hmm.
And I'm sure they were beautiful beings. It's
Yeah.
just my human is very, I get frightened looking at strange fish deep in the ocean.
Dude,
Okay?
fair, right?
Deeply frightened.
That's I agree with you. And so that's the thing. Do you have to just love all of it and be okay with all of it? Even the creatures around the planet. And what's more to how we treat each other as humans, you and I aren't doing that shit, but let's say what's more is how we perceive ourselves in relationship to other things that we find uncomfortable and can take not on face
Yeah.
value. Pretty sure they did this in a Marvel movie, Mrs. Marvel, Captain Marvel. Did you ever see that one with what's her name? Anyway, the bad guy was the freaky looking dude, but he wasn't the bad guy. It was the human. So it was the old switcheroo here. So the same concept
Exactly.
that we're
I
talking
do
about.
not believe what was taking me into that ship had ill intention. I don't
Just we're
think that.
programmed.
Yes, I knew that when I started to feel the pressure or the texture or something touching me and that sort of thing, that I needed to brace myself for all of it. This same way you brace yourself getting on a ride that takes you hundreds of feet up in the air and then
Yeah.
just drops. You're going on purpose to get that thrill. So there's a thrill to it, but also my human takes over and is extremely um, terrified by the look, but I do know I would get used to it and be okay.
Yeah, like you
The
become
ghosts are different, slightly ghosts. I mean, the spirit entities are a little different. The kind of coming in and out of walls. I do have trauma from horror movies, I'm sure, but I I know I do. But there's something unsafe about that. I don't like it when someone I know who's in the other room goes boo around a corner.
yeah.
I don't need something going real boo around a corner. Okay.
Yeah, an actual ghost. And I
I
picture it.
don't know. especially if I can't fight you. How dare you come up in my space and I can't even swing at you? That's not fair. There's a lot about that that's not fair. And
Oh my god.
most spirit energies do not want to interface with you that way and scare you. And many of them aren't even ghosts. They're just humans or other beings living in their timeline, and timelines are crossing. There's a lot to the spirit world and being a psychic and a medium in the fifth dimensional perspective that is that can take away the spookiness of it. But I don't care if you're in another time and place. If all of a sudden something appears, my nervous system's going to respond to that, and I
Yeah.
like peace.
Right, and it's visceral. I mean, it's a
Visceral.
response. I mean, there's two things that you're born with here innately to age you and survive. If you just get sort of, Baloo style dropped off and get raised by wolves or something, you have two damn things in you that you can live by, and that is the fear of heights and the fear of loud noises. So those two things give you free reign to you pretty much can survive on that. Everything else is learned, by the way. So like racism, we know all this. Everything else
Right.
is learned. So
Yeah.
those two things are your fallback. So being startled, yeah, dude, that's innate. That's in you. That's I don't
Oh,
think
I
that's something
was
you have to
I
get
was
over.
the kid in, sorry, it cut out so I didn't hear you. I'm talking, I didn't mean to talk over you, but
Oh, you're good.
when I was a child, my I would have to stay inside with almost like Play-Doh earplugs. I don't know how to describe it. They form to your ear on 4th of July because I would have such like panic and anxiety from the sounds going off. No one else around me was like that, and that's very typical of empaths and highly sensitive people. Loud sudden noises for everybody can be startling, but for us it is severe. It causes physical pain in the stomach area and chest, and throughout the body. So something just suddenly appearing, especially if I can't whop. You
The
know what I mean? That's not cool. That's not cool to me.
funniest damn things I've ever heard, like ever, from especially from you, and it's brilliant, absolutely adorable. So the difference between a medium and somebody that just I see dead people. What's the difference between those two?
So, um, what someone who sees dead people, you could say, is a medium, but
Mhm.
truly a medium is not someone who just interfaces with beings who were once physical and from our linear perspective are now not. That is not the definition of a medium. A medium is someone who sits between dimensions and guides and creates a channel between one dimensional plane of existence or consciousness to another. That's truly what a medium is. Someone who can see dead people is just someone who's interfacing with people. Like a lot of the beings that you see materialize like that, they are 4D. Okay, they are fourth dimensional. So there's um, there's nothing hashtag 5D about that. Okay, so what you're interfacing with are beings, not souls, but left over. If it is someone who has crossed over and they're still there, they're stuck. Oh, they're stuck in this building, and we must find their murderer before they can be released into the light. I'm like, how human is that? And
Yeah.
but the reason that's so human is because their fourth dimensional astral form is what has been left behind. So there's nothing really spooky about that, but it's it's um it's not what we think it is, and we're moving now beyond that, where um it's that many different beings will be able to interface within us or within us and within our matrix in that experience, but it's not done, it's by choice or by permission. It's not by coincidence. These things that happen by chance in the third dimension, everything in that unity consciousness, that fifth dimensional state, is out of synchronicity. So there would be a need for it, or an opening for it, and you wouldn't have a fear program that I guess I do have now that we've uncovered that.
Well, I mean, shit, I do too. I mean, and I'm sure all the other hands would go up too. I don't know. I mean, that many people that are just, dancing arm in arm like the Wizard of Oz with like Bigfoot, the Dog Man, and a spirit or something like a Wendigo or something. They're not. I, I mean, people even that draw stuff like that and that bring those things to fear in us that then are created in movies are like scared shitless of that if it were to actually pop out and be real.
Do you
So
know how many times I still, to this day, have to close my closet or my certain doors or things like that, because I'll be standing in the kitchen and I'll feel like I'm being watched and I can't turn around still because I'm afraid they're going to be there physically. I don't know why I've had this trauma since I was a kid. I would keep my blanket over my head for hours every single night because I just knew if I pulled it down, I would physically see them and I didn't want to.
Ugh.
So there, I don't know why that is so scary to me, and I think it does have to do with some movies, okay, and some other things that have happened to me in other lives. But there's so many different, as our heart opens, as we really move into the heart and out of the mind and into the heart, into that 5D perspective, all those beings are welcome if they match the intention and that sort of thing. I don't want to be closed off to them, but we as humans are still fighting each other. There's still aspects of each other that we're scared of. Okay. Let alone the crazy bioluminescent blowfish at the bottom of the ocean that looks so terrifying.
The
And it's just
anglerfish,
going
yeah.
about, oh my
I'm gonna
God,
pull it up
just
here
going about
in
it.
real
No,
time
no,
and
no,
show
no,
it
no,
to me.
no, no, no. It really does bother me.
I will not.
Like
Not.
it, I could just look away,
It's a
but
legit
it
thing. No,
has
no, no.
a visceral reaction to me. Anything underwater does actually. Even
I'm
like seeing the Titanic underwater, complete panic.
Yeah, I think that that's also very fucking normal, like
Yeah,
very normal. Now,
yeah.
what do you think that that's a genetic code that's actually been imprinted in us and that's actually not that scary and that the knowledge of our terrification of the underwater world, especially like things in it, like these people that go explore shipwrecks and stuff like that,
Oh,
that's terrifying to me.
that's
Thank you,
terrifying.
right? I just keep visualizing like what they like getting your
Not
foot
everyone's
pulled up and
terrified of that.
I know, but that's the thing, right?
My
Like
parents can watch them go down there and look at the Titanic, and there's nothing. Okay, they're totally fine with it. There's no reaction to that. They
so
can
then the
get in the
question is,
ocean, they can get in lakes. It can be dark water. There's no visceral reaction to that at all. I was the kid in the bathtub that would freak out if there were too many bubbles because I couldn't see the bottom of it. So there's something in some of us that is not just human. It does relate to something that we have been through or died from or something like that, I believe.
hear me out. What if it's a genetic code in us because really our world, our reality, we're isolated in an air pocket and we're not used to air anyway. And so the fear of the water to go back in to like swim out and go home, like space is water, everything else is water, right? And it's all connected through there, but we're sort of here for whatever reason, not a prison thing. I don't believe in that. I'm just
Right.
saying that it's like an air pocket. So that may be the firmament, the water's above, all these things that Jason Bashir's, all these people talk about. And that really it's an inversion of the real reality. Actually, you love water. You come from the water. Maybe it's hidden in the Toady song. I come from the water. Maybe it's something like that. And so again, as we are to forget whenever we experience this place from unity of consciousness, all the things we're here to discover, so too maybe there be a built-in not only physical barrier for our avatar as far as we can't go to like Antarctica without a bunch of shit to survive, right? It's like a physical barrier for our environment, but also so too water. I mean, maybe that's the thing, and we can actually, we're like from there, but it's again inverted
Yeah,
here.
no, I totally understand because what water really represents to me is a darkness, a void, a kind of quiet, because when you go under there, everything is it a lot of times, although I love coral reefs and dolphins, and I mean it's water. It isn't the ocean, it's that quiet, different, non-breathing. There's something about it that goes beyond just thinking I'm going to die or drown. It doesn't just
Yeah,
feel
it's
that
more
way. It
terrifying.
feels it's more terrifying. Yes,
Uh,
it's what's down there. There's less sunlight. There's less, I don't know how to explain it. It's one of
mhm.
those things just like spirits or that sort of thing. There's this visceral reaction that I'm not sure how to move through. Um, and it's just always been there.
I mean, I'm the same way. Even videos like of stuff underwater and stuff like that. A big, even if it's animate, like those statues that people would throw under the huge statues and stuff, and they go dive around them. I'm like, no,
There's a
no.
movie called Artificial Intelligence,
Uh-huh.
and with Haley Joel Osment. And at some point, I think it's in the future, and the ice caps have melted, and so the Statue of Liberty's underwater, and he's a android basically, so he can survive underwater, and he's underwater. That part of that movie, I would have to close my eyes because of just the way it looks. It's just terrifying.
Yeah, and then when in scenes, and we'll get off this, okay? Because we've been talking about water for a minute, but I agree with you. But there is something I want to bring up. But in scenes in like movies and stuff, I'm always like, when they're underwater, I know they have divers and they're like being past stuff, and there's multiple takes, but I'm sitting there going like, and like holding
Yes.
my breath while they're
Well,
underwater.
I believe that that's a part of us, genetically, absolutely. I'm sure there is. And it's interesting because we did kind of come from that in the womb, being in a amniotic fluid and that sort of thing. So, but there's something about that coming up, but I wish I had an answer for it. And I wish that I really do believe that I have something happened with water at some point. Okay. And it may have happened to many people in that way, because I know people who are not afraid of water like that at all.
Yeah,
There are things that other people are so afraid of that I just have no fear of at all, and vice versa. And there's something to that. Like, yes, I'm scared of heights, but like I can be on a plane and it can hit rough air, and I'm just like, yeah. And the person next to me who can drink a whole bottle, 3 bottles of wine in one night, is over there going, oh my God, I'm having a panic attack. And
mm,
I'm like, I'm so afraid of being that out of control, being that drunk. And here you are on a plane. And so there's something genetically, but I do believe we carry some type of memory with us.
yeah, I completely agree. And it may, like I said, be an apprehension because, like you said, we come in through water. Our first breath is through water, and Elsa Dillon talks about this, and she talks about how your first breath being here is very important. And again, it's like this connection, this conduit, this fluidity. But what's interesting is you say like you feel separateness. I feel interconnectedness in water. I feel like this complete. I'm terrified by some of it, not all of it, but the interconnectedness. It's almost to me the conduit for everything. So it's got like the memory of all, and it does breathe and undulate just on such a scale that's so vast. It's just a little unsettling. So I agree with you in the feelings. And so when you said you didn't have an answer, you have better. You have a visceral experience, which leads us to interesting things to talk about. So
And here's what I'd also like to say about water is that it is a more dense version of air. So actually, although water is amazing, there might be an aspect of water that is actually lower in vibration or more dense, and that just might not be where I want to go,
it's interesting. Yeah, because then you think of air being more,
which
that
is
of less
water.
dense. And then you think of the molecules in less dense air being, of course, less dense, and then what they call space or whatever. I mean, yeah, very
So
interesting.
it's all the same thing, just different levels of density. And I think maybe um, based on your vibration and your trauma or past life experiences, something like that, because it's not just oceans, it's dark pools, public pools. I mean, when I was a child, if there were no lights on in the pool at night and I would get in, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was a shark. So
They,
something I used to think sharks were in my bathtub too, that there was a hole under the bathtub and it would collapse and take me down. And just weird sun in the 12th house
I still think that.
shit.
Yeah. But what if you're so powerful, and especially at that age when you're not that restricted and you haven't been told that you're not that powerful, that you actually create something in that damn water? You
Yeah.
manifest it because, like we talked about, water being such an emotive conduit. Maybe there is something to that, to where you literally project and manifest something.
I, I believe that's possible. And even as a kid, I did believe that I could create things with my mind. I did for most of my life, and I still do, but like back then it was like anything. I just thought I just had to figure out how to do it. So I, yes, but there's something completely irrational and totally not. There's so much cognitive dissonance when it comes to the water thing for me. Like, I love to swim in pools during the day. The minute it's night, it's I love the ocean, like around the Caribbean, swimming with the dolphins and touch. The minute it gets really deep, it's the darkness,
Yeah.
it's the
It's the
void,
And
it's
man,
the.
the sharks that just come out of fucking nowhere, man.
Oh yeah, and the
Ugh,
sharks on top
they
of
move
that,
so
which
fast.
I love sharks, but they are spooky. And there's an aspect of the of the ocean and those dark, it's the dark water. I do believe that something happened to me.
Yeah, same. And
Something
that's my next
happened.
question, of course. Have you done any hypnotic regressions or past lives or anything like that?
I have, but nothing about the water has come up. The only thing that has ever come up was Ben Carroll and I were having a conversation one time.
Shout out.
Shout out Ben Carroll. Um, and he has the same mass, or I'm going to call it an implant, under the right side of his tongue where mine is. Okay. And that was the conversation that we were having. And he was like, "Oh, I've never really thought about it." And I said, "Can you push it down and flip it around?" And I did the whole thing. And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, I've never met anyone else who has it. Everyone else who's ever gone, oh, I have that. It's just the gilly, like, fins that are under your tongue that everyone else has. I have a half the size of a grain of rice, round BB bullet thing under the skin under my tongue. And I've had it since I was 13, and he's had it since he was a kid. And it just showed up. And that's how it did for many people. There are parents of hybrid children who describe having these masses under their tongue that they can flip around and all this kind of stuff. And it's hard, and it's been there since I was a kid. And I thought it was cancer when I was a kid. We had that conversation, and he told me that he retained memory of being a Lyran and crashing on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. And he said that his family didn't make it and that they crashed in water and that they drowned. Well, I had a visceral reaction to that when he said that. I didn't go any further into that because I don't need to go down any rabbit holes. If that created an opening, it'll drop him when it's supposed to. I don't
What
need
if
to go
you're his
searching.
little Lyran cub? Like you're his little son, his little cub.
I do feel a brotherly energy even in this life, but
Yeah.
I, yes, when he said that, it was like, whoa, almost like he was affirming something to me. And it was this that even allowed me to buy into that to begin with, because I was just like, okay, there's something with Ben Carroll, and there just is. And there's something that I have with you. There's something I have with many people. He's one of them. There's a star family energy there.
Yeah.
And not many people are like he and I in certain ways, in recollecting things or seeing things a certain way or going through certain things when we were younger, and the music thing. And there's quite a few things that are adding up. And that was enough. I was like, even if that is just a piece of skin under his mouth, just like the fact that it's not, though. It's not. That's the thing. And I don't know how to explain or prove any of that, but there's feelings that come with that. And I'm letting it be, and letting it be a possibility rather than a fact.
Come on. Do you think it could be sort of a genetic marker, like rather than an implant? I mean, not even necessarily, not also an implant, like a yes and type of a situation. And maybe there are certain bodily things like that that when you come to find people that you can be open enough to discuss such abnormalities, then you could say, hey, maybe you could connect with these people on that. And that's sort of a marker. Like maybe everybody that in our tribe has a freckle right here. Do you have a freckle right there on your right arm?
Where are you
Right on,
pointing?
right here, where your elbow bends. Do you have a freckle right there? Can you imagine we do this with every?
I was about to be like, "Oh my God, yeah, I do."
Yeah,
I get what
exactly.
you're doing.
I love you so much. So, tell me about your favorite. What's your favorite planet? You do amazing astrology and incredibly cool shit. So, tell me about your favorite planet and follow up. Favorite moon orbiting another planet does not have to be the same planet, by the way.
What planet do you think is my favorite?
I'm gonna say Saturn.
So my favorite planet is Chiron, and I don't care if you all call it a planet or
Didn't know
not.
that.
It is.
See, that's the thing I mistook. The definitions, I was not considering that a planet. Now,
Okay,
let me ask
if
a
you want to,
follow-up question.
it's technically not. It is an asteroid, but I consider it a planetary body because it's there just like the other ones are. Maybe it was. Maybe the party wasn't designed, or maybe this isn't Chiron's wedding, but Chiron crashed the wedding. Chiron is a centaur. So it is part of the centaur group of asteroids, and centaurs are half man, half horse, and so they are half comet, half asteroid, and they are wanderers like centaurs as well. And just like centaurs in mythology, they decided to wander right on into our solar system and make a home here, and now they belong.
Wow.
So Chiron is my favorite planet, and I am Chiron. So that energy is very important to me. But if you ask me what my other favorite planet is, that actually is a planet, Uranus.
Okay. That's fair. Okay. See, the Chiron thing is fascinating. So is it, like you said, a member of another group of planet comets, planet Rits? What are we calling them?
A planetoid.
Planetoid. Okay. Is it in like a group, like a clan of others, and do they have personalities and all of those
Yes,
kind of things?
absolutely. So there's Chiron, Chariklo. These are the centaur asteroids that live out there between Saturn and Uranus. So Chiron actually orbits most of the time in its orbit, about 90% of the time, between Saturn and Uranus. So that's why we consider Chiron to be the rainbow bridge, because Saturn represents restriction. You know, those rings, we're holding something into physical reality here. And then you've got Uranus, which also has a ring around it, but you'll notice Uranus is flipped on its side and um, spins the opposite direction than the other planets. Venus also spins the opposite direction. But of course, Uranus, which represents rebellion and revolution, sits on its side and revolves the other way. So everything is very poetic, just like Neptune. They didn't know it was blue when they named it after the god of the sea. So there's a there's a beauty in the way that that as above so below principle shows up within astrology. And so Uranus represents um rules Aquarius and represents revolution, technology, future timelines. Uranus is the beginning of the transdimensional planets or the transpersonal planets. See, Jupiter and Saturn belong to the outer planet energies. Sun, fuck the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Earth. These are the interplanetary energies. They represent that personality within you. Okay. You start reaching out beyond that and you get to Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is expansion, your belief systems. There's a higher mind there. There's something that operates outside of the physical personality or human personality, if you will. And then Saturn has a very um, masculine energy, but it constricts. So you've got the expansion of Jupiter and that optimism, and then the real structured discipline, restriction, and tradition of Saturn and that patriarchal energy. Saturn rules physical reality, it rules physical form. Saturn keeps everything in physical form. There's a boundary that Saturn creates, and Saturn is the end of the boundary of those physical planets. When you move beyond Saturn and you go to Uranus, you're moving outside of this dimension. Uranus is about future timelines, and we know that future is happening now. It's probability, and it's about bringing in something new. And Uranus rules Kundalini energy. And I was going through Uranus square when I went through Kundalini Rising. I went through it twice. You could say I went through it once over the course of a few years, but it came in a huge burst of electrical, terrifying lightning in in two different spots, okay, in my life. During that time, I have now been able to correlate the fact that I was going through Uranus square Chiron and the rising sign, and then when it happened again a year later, I was going through Uranus square Saturn, Uranus square Juno, Uranus square the moon, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, because I have all of those planets in Aquarius and Leo. So I knew, okay, something's going on here, and Uranus, it's an awakener. I call him the awakener. He awakens you to something new and sets you on a new trajectory. Now, how do you get from that real structured place, that Saturn place, rules, discipline, things being hard, lessons, karma, this kind of repeating of this karma that we keep coming back and doing? Well, what planet lives between Saturn and Uranus? Well, it's Chiron. So Chiron is the rainbow bridge. Before you can get from the patriarchy, the old structured ways of the past, and to get to that future, that new timeline, that age of Aquarius, which Uranus rules, you have to heal yourself. There has to be a transmutation of energy. Chiron does not just represent the wound in your chart, it represents an opening. Rumi said that the wound is where the light enters you. And so although the wound is where much of your energy will leak, and that's how trauma works, it's also the portal in which the awakening is going to happen. And Chiron's a maverick. He's not quite a rebel like that Uranus Aquarius energy, but those who embody the Chiron archetype, which I do because I have Chiron conjunct my ascendant exactly. Both of them are at 25 degrees, which means at the time of my birth, the sign that was on the eastern horizon was Cancer, and the exact ascendant point was 25 degrees. And it just so happened at that very moment, the planet Chiron was sitting there. And so that energy is imbued into my persona, into my aura, or into my rising sign. So although I have Chiron in Cancer and rising in Cancer, because Chiron rules Virgo, I have a Virgoan energy. Because Chiron, you could read me like having Virgo rising, because I'm just as perfectionistic. I'm a healer, all the things that Virgo is. Okay. Because the perfectionism of Virgo has to be there, because she has to know where to go to remove the blockage and to create perfection or to raise the vibration. So what we're dealing with here is an energy that is archetypal, but it's he is the key. And if you look at astrology, Chiron's glyph, his symbol looks like a little key. It looks like a K, but it's a key. And I tell people he is the key to the ascension process. He is the bridge that you'll cross over that rainbow from the old paradigm into the new. Fuck with that.
I love you so goddamn much. Did you know that? I love you so
I love you too so much. I hope you know that.
You know, it's just so interesting because whenever I speak with you, I'm just like, oh my God, like, it just, the questions abound. So, I mean, first of all, why do you hate the moon?
Okay. So I do not hate the moon. I want to start with that. Okay. But I'm glad you said it that way, because I make it seem that way. And really, I'm kind of on a little mission just to make people question. I don't want people to decide what it is, because you create your own reality. And I'd rather you stop giving your power to things outside of yourself, especially things that are hollow and metallic and filled with extra dimensional beings. But
Weird.
I really want people to question things. That's all. I also dislike the moon because I have Cancer rising, and Cancer is the sign that we have associated with the moon. It's the sign that the moon rules in traditional astrology. In my astrology, Cancer is not the crab, it's the turtle, and it's ruled by Earth, because Cancer is the mother. The moon is not my mother, the Earth is. Okay? The moon, in my opinion, is a satellite. It is a metallic mechanism that, whether it's filled with extra dimensional beings or not, whether it's hollow or not, was placed in our orbit for a specific reason in a mathematical geometric ratio to the sun, so that it covers and eclipses and blocks the frequency of that pure light, because you are the sun. So people ask me, well, what do you mean the Earth rules Cancer? Does that mean you have an Earth sign? It sure does. And don't get it twisted with like fire, air, earth, and water. Like in my astrology classes, there are fire signs, water signs, air signs, and matter signs, not earth signs. Earth is not the only planet that exists. This is not 2,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago. So the astrology has to update. There's matter or materia, air, fire, and water. The earth sign is what sign the earth was in when you were born. And you can think, well, how is that? Because what spirit told me was that the sun, wherever you are on the planet, it doesn't matter. If the sun is in, like my sun sign is 23 degrees of Gemini. I was born on June 15th. And that means that my earth sign is 23 degrees of Sagittarius, opposite of that. Your earth sign is Pisces, because your sun sign is Virgo, yes? So your earth sign is Pisces, because what spirit told me was the sun is your higher consciousness, your awareness of self, which we all talk about that in astrology. So what they said was you take your physical body is being imbued by the perspective of the sun being here within a specific zodiacal sign. And then you take yourself out of the body and you go into the sun from that solar consciousness, that soul consciousness that you are, and you look from the perspective of the sun toward Earth. It's about perspective. So to me, I find it to be more logical even that your sun and your earth sign are opposite of each other, just like your rising and your descendant in the chart. They're always opposite of each other. Why is your outer world, the sun, and your inner world not always with in opposition or the same energy? Why is it this random moon thing that can happen at all these different times? The moon does not rule your emotions. It never has. Your emotions are yours. The moon influences water, magnetism, gravitational forces, and there are many things that I want to talk about when it comes to the moon, such as Cancer rising, I was always told that I was a moon child. You Cancer rising people are most affected by the moon phases. And that is true. And it has been my whole life. I was 16 years old working at a fast food restaurant. I would have a bad night and I'd walk out to my car and there would be a full moon. Every month I would go through this thing and I'd walk outside and there'd be a full moon and I would go, oh my gosh, maybe there really is something to this astrology that I'm interested in, because I didn't really believe in it. I just thought it was cool when I was 16. And I thought, wow, I think this proves that there's something actually happening. So it was a doorway for me into the science of astrology and that sort of thing. But I can tell you, I have never, ever felt good on a full moon. I'm not going to say never, but generally, and we do know this scientifically, that our brains produce less melatonin when there's a full moon, for instance, and that we're connected. It's connected to us in some way. Of course it is, because it lives within our gravitational orbit. However, I just don't think that that's necessary, and I don't think it's necessary for our existence on Earth. And I always get anxiety, restlessness. I mean, why do you think we call them lunatics? Okay. There's something about the moon that makes us crazy. And you know what else it does? And I was just reading about this last night. When the brain produces less melatonin and boosts more serotonin, there's an imbalance that happens around the full moon, especially. And parasites inside of your body come out to play when you've got an overabundance of serotonin. And so actually parasites feed off of the cycle of the moon. And there's things like that that just keep leading me to believe or to say, fuck that bitch.
Your take on this is is absolutely fascinating. And this is, there's cultures who say, so to the scientists that say life here is dependent on the moon, like, oh, the
Who
tides
says
are-
that?
a lot of some mainstream science. Mainstream science tells you that the moon is controlling the tides, which controls all life.
Well, if Bill Nye didn't say it, I'm not
Yeah.
believing it. So,
Bill Nye said that shit. He's on board with these people. That's
I'm
his
sure
conviction.
because he's getting paid by them. So,
That's what I'm saying.
and I do believe that they believe that. I think that because it does have an effect on gravitational forces and water. There's things happening, and we think, oh, well, that's just the nature of it, because we were not around 12,500 years ago in this incarnation to feel the difference.
Yeah, it's so wild because when you say 12,500, that's that Younger Dryas period. That's that period that Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson talk about being those meteorite
You talking
impacts.
about my uncle?
Yes. And your uncle. And so, but with that, this is kind of the idea maybe that at that time is when the moon was brought here, because there are cultures that speak of a time before the moon. Multiple, I knew.
Almost all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Specifically, I could think of Ethiopia and then China as
Yes.
well.
And
But then,
Ethiopia is like, that's a place we should look for information because of how ancient it is. Much more ancient than even Egypt or Mesopotamia. Ethiopia, some people believe Ethiopia was where the Garden of Eden was.
dope.
So, yeah, I have a lot of Ethiopian friends, and they have a lot of pride about that, how ancient and how extra dimensional or extraterrestrial that many African tribes and Native American tribes will point to different star systems and call it home. And so there's a lot of wisdom codes there. And for them, they were around, or there was this awareness that the moon appeared. And around this time when it appeared was the same time that we had a mass flood. Well, what does the moon do every month to the water levels? There are certain things that just start to add up, and whether we have all the information or not, or whether we're completely out of our minds or not, people are still worshiping the moon.
Yeah, like the Saturn moon thing. Have you heard anything about that? What do you think about that? The black cube cult and all that, the black Saturn cult.
I have not heard of a Black Saturn cult.
The
I
idea,
like
like,
that though.
I knew you
I'm gonna
would, but
steal their name for my
you're
cult.
welcome to. Well, and then alchemize it, make it your own very,
Yes, I'm an
productive.
alchemist, so I'm going to.
Damn right. And that's why I jokingly said earlier your favorite planet is at Saturn, and it's for this reason, because I
Yeah,
knew
I do
that
love
your
Saturn.
feeling about the, and I was not going to talk about it anymore. And so it was because of that connection with it that I was thinking, because David Icke has done some phenomenal work on this, like hours long presentations on all of these topics, to where
I
it's this
love him.
idea that I know, right? Saturn is projecting a pulse, like a signal, and then the moon amplifies it. Plus, it keeps this grid of illusion over us, and all of these things. So
I have actually not heard of this Saturn and the moon sort of thing. And I find that interesting because what I was taught for many years was when you look at the natal chart, you look to the moon to see the relationship that person had with the mother, and you look to Saturn to see what that person's relationship with the father figure. Sometimes those roles can be reversed more in modern times, but that was originally how we looked at it was Saturn's the father and the moon is the mother. And I'm like, shouldn't it be the sun and the earth?
yeah, it seems like an apprehension, like a deliberate psyop. It
Yes,
even
what I
fits
think here's
certain.
what yeah, what I think is happening now that this is we're opening this and it's coming through is I
Yeah.
think that the moon has siphoned off the mother energy and we have assigned it there as because the moon represents that we live in a third dimensional false matrix. So we live in a third dimension inside of a third dimension. So the moon almost acts as that mother outside of ourself, not the one that we're on or that we came from. And Saturn also as well because the fact that we associate Saturn with the father is unnecessary, I think, because we associate Saturn with being the disciplinarian. So I think that fathers have been given the Saturn responsibility to be that way, and I don't think men or the father should play the role of the disciplinarian. This is old stuff that we're moving out of, so astrology has to evolve with that.
Do you think that these new understandings have come about because of insight and research, or do you feel that we're just allowed these now because of some sort of upgrade occurring in conjunction with the age of Aquarius? Like, we're
Oh, I
able to
think that
handle.
you've got thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people starting to tap into their intuition. They're working with psychedelics. They're going deep into shamanic journeys, hypnotherapy, and they're getting the answers from their cells and their higher self rather than the TV or Gaia or us even. We're here to validate what you're getting inside, not to prove to you that you're not crazy because you don't trust yourself. Um, there's a cutting off of our natural intuition and our self-trust that we're coming back in. And I think many people, as they're going into their journeys and into their experience, they're getting this information themselves. And then we're sharing it with each other, which is sparking more conversation. That's the age of Aquarius.
It's about this raising of vibration, which allows new things, and really they're epiphanies at a level. There's a adorable woman I can't wait to introduce you to named Laurel Erica, and she does this word magic global, and adorable. Her definition of an epiphany is the sudden recognition of the obvious. And so it seems like these
Yeah.
things are around us right now, but we have these epiphanies that are occurring where we're just able to perceive. And it's maybe,
Yes.
so did it pop
Yes.
up, or has it been here the whole damn time and now we can see it? We have the eyes to see it, literally.
Are we
Yes.
referring to the moon?
Yeah, just any like of the observations about these things that we can make, because it doesn't feel like this is a knowledge-based progression for us, like we're building on something else. It feels like it's building, but that there are like downloads of information that we now have access to. So we're just like opening
Yes.
files now.
Yes. And I also believe that that a channel who pull like there are channels that may get that the moon came here 10,000 years ago and it's infused with crystalline rainbow light, and the Galactic Council is taking care of it, and all is well. I believe there's a reality where that is happening. There's also a reality where there's not that happening. So we're also moving into a time where two things that are not the same can both be right or correct.
So this is dichotomy. This is the thing that Neil Donald Walsh talked about early on in Conversations with God. I'm glad I wrapped my mind around this concept, and this is why.
It's hard. It's hard.
So
I don't know how I wrapped there are just certain things that I just get that in that way that I'm like, gosh, I can see why it's taking some people some time to get there.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's okay. And I don't feel that we are dependent on anything like other than our own progression. Like it's not our job to save people. And it's interesting too. I just want to do a callback real quick because I noted it. Your Chiron to Jupiter Saturn merger, the dream between the future, the rigid between the future, dude.
Saturn and Uranus. Yeah.
Saturn and Uranus. My
Yes.
apologies. That connection is you in real life as a medium. You're
That's
that.
exactly right. Chiron was so Chiron in mythology, he was a centaur, yes, but he was the only centaur that was gentle, that was sweet, because centaurs were savage beings. They were, um, I'm not going to say that word, that trigger word, that
Ruthless.
R word, murderers, pillagers. I mean, savages. They aren't actually, but that was just how, to them, that was just how they are. But Chiron was much more of that human side. He was much more gentle. He was a healer, yes, but he was a teacher, an astrologer, and a medium. He could speak to the dead. That's why we call him a shaman. He is. Chiron is the shaman. See, in traditional astrology, Chiron is the wounded healer, because in mythology, Chiron, Heracles shot Chiron in the leg and he was immortal. So he was doomed for eternity to live in physical reality, not being able to run and roam freely. He was always wounded, but he was also a healer. So it became this archetype. But at the end of the Chiron story, Zeus actually sets Chiron free. Someone makes a deal with Zeus. You always had to make a deal with his ass. And then they made a deal, and Chiron was set free from his immortality, and he was emblazoned in the sky as the constellation Sagittarius. So I'm asking people to step into the 5D astrology world where he's no longer the wounded healer, he is the healer. We no longer are healing because we're wounded. The suffering is over. And many astrologers believe that your Chiron sign, that wound, that insecurity, it can never truly be healed. It can just be worked through. And I'm just like, what a terrible hallway to walk down. And no wonder people aren't wanting to heal themselves, because all people tell them is it's never going to end, but you'll like it one day. And it's just like, no, it never does end. But telling someone that it doesn't heal means that it's verbiage and semantics, but we really have to understand that the new Chiron energy, it's why I spell it Chyron,
Love it.
is a totally different. He's an alchemist, a shaman, a transmuter of energy. And it's not because of his wound. It's because of his purpose. It's because that's what that energy does. And so it's about taking that story back and making our own, just like Lilith in astrology, and the way that Lilith shows up, and how we're going to let Lilith back into the Garden of Eden so that she's not roaming through the stories of mythology wondering, why was I doomed to be a she-demon for eternity just because I spoke up?
Shouldn't do that,
So
dude.
we're setting her free.
It's set a message. All right, Christopher. That's what that was about 1,000 years ago, and that's why we're still doing it. Okay, that's the most dangerous
Yes,
sentence ever spoken by anyone. Well, that's just the way we've always done it. So we're just gonna
we're gonna keep
rolling
doing
like
it.
that. Yeah, why not? Speaking of something cool, check this shit out. So I pulled up just a couple of things here because this is a fun show and we just kind of do what we want. Check this shit out, bro. Okay, so Saturn Moon Matrix thing is fascinating. Again, David Icke does a lot of great work on this, so I highly recommend folks look into this a little bit further on their own. But there's a myriad of things that you can look at when it comes to Saturn and when it comes to the ideas of this planet having a tremendous amount of influence over us here on Earth, but that it needs a counterpart. And there's some sort of conjunction between what this is official NASA, by the way, nasa.gov. Boom, here, check that out. Bam. So this is NASA telling you that Saturn is booming and beaming all these rays into your brain and it's making you crazy. See this? This is the official thing. This is NASA's way of saying that to you, by the way. So what though is more fascinating about that would be the storm that's on Saturn. So Saturn has this storm on its poles. Have you seen this, Christopher?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the storm actually forms a 3D cube, right? And this is where we get the cube symbolism from all these occult things. So there's a ton of cube symbolism, by the way, in all sorts of stuff all over the place. In major centers, this is in New York. I want to say one of these is in Chicago. There's a couple all over the world, but these black cubes, there happens to be one in the middle of Mecca too, by the way. So here we go. Here's another little layout of this. But what this represents, and the idea goes, is that it's the Saturn moon matrix. And it is this idea that what they are worshiping here in this iconography is Saturn. Now you have a bunch of logos and stuff like this too. All of these logos have to do with black cube symbolism as well. And venture to say you find a few of these pretty sus whenever you get up to the money part of it. But what I find fascinating about that is that the moon, excuse me, is sort of a counterpart in a cohort in all of this fuckery that NASA's up, I say NASA, but I'm used to that flowing right out of my mouth. The fuckery that Saturn is up to as far as controlling our minds here on Earth. And so these ideas are kind of just like everything, right? Laid out right in front of you. What do you think about that Saturn moon matrix there, Christopher?
When I tune into it, what I'm getting is that it's not Saturn that's the issue. It's the interceptor that is the issue.
The moon, huh?
Yes.
See,
So
because it was like put
just
there.
there's many things that the moon is doing. Saturn, first of all, Saturn belongs there. It fits in our solar system. The ratio is correct. The moon is not. Okay, there's certain things about that. Now, think about the word Saturn, Satan.
Yeah.
Okay, so Saturn
That's fine.
represents the Old Testament God. Saturn is, which one was the, I hate to say good or bad, but which one was the good or bad one? Enki or Enlil?
I want to say Inky.
Enlil. Enki was the one who wanted to take over the population, that sort of thing. So Saturn represents Enki, the more that Old Testament punisher god. That's why Saturn is the lord of karma, cause and effect. There's a karmic energy that Saturn holds. And so I do believe that there's an issue with Saturn, and that's why there's Uranus, Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, because Saturn rules what's happening in the physical reality here. There is a limit that it has in its control too. That's why when you tap out of the physical matrix, the effects of Saturn also lessen because you're tuning into higher energies. There are planets that we can't even see right now. We call them etheric planets. Vulcan is one of them. And so some of these planets that we can see with our eyes, we once would not have been able to see in our visible light spectrum due to our level of consciousness. But they are also acting as lower manifestations. Like Pluto is a lower manifestation of Vulcan, which is a higher manifestation of Pluto. So there's many aspects of astrology that when you open that Pandora's box, it will not stop. Okay. So I do believe that this moon Saturn matrix thing, there's something there. I do not believe that there's anything wrong with the shape of a cube. I think it's a platonic solid. I like a cube. I like the color black. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that the influence of Saturn is passing through a filter, just like the moon eclipses the sun. Exactly. It's the same size as the sun, to almost create a darkness, or it distorts the wavelength. We know this. So the sun is emitting a wavelength. Saturn is as well. But what that Saturn energy is doing is kind of guarding or holding physical reality in place. And then you've got this moon energy that's intercepting that and is causing a disturbance within the emotional and physical bodies that are causing a loop in a program. How about this? Have you ever heard of the North and the South Node?
Yes.
So those are the North and the South Node relate to the moon. So my discovery with the moon rocked my world, because I'm like, now what am I going to, what do I tell people about the moon? And what does that mean about them? And what does that mean about the North and the South Node? Because the North and the South Node are the points on the ecliptic where the sun and the moon will meet. So the South Node was, from a linear perspective, past lives or influences from other lives, that where you're coming from. The North Node was supposed to be where you're going. And so now I believe that the North and the South Node are also part of a reincarnation program that is keeping us looping and keeping us coming back in to physical reality, repeating the same lessons over and over and over. And so there's a lot that makes sense about that. But then Saturn rules karma. So, of course, Saturn would be involved in that process as well. And we're not necessarily talking about karma from a soul perspective, um, uh, major soul complex level. We're talking about like the cause and effect of being in human life and being in this star system and that sort of thing. Saturn does not reach out into our soul level being the way that Pluto and Neptune do. So it doesn't represent that. But this is making sense to me. I just don't think Saturn is the issue.
You know, it's fascinating because now I'm thinking that they just sort of like hitched their energy to it as they were dragging the moon in. You know what I mean? They picked the planet that would do the most controlling damage, you know, and have the most impact on a psyche as a collective. And but keep them creative enough. It's like a midway point. You know, it's a mid-balanced sort of a thing, but still, like you said, a little on the outer, considered an outer planet. And so they sort
Don't
of
you
attach to
see
that
it's
energy.
almost poetic that they would hook it to Saturn, because Saturn is the barrier between physical reality as density as we know it and the future possibility, those new paradigms, that new thing that causes something new to happen, because Saturn rules Capricorn. Capricorn didn't innovate anything. We go, Capricorn is so successful. Capricorn is so ambitious. Capricorn is so hardworking. Yes, Capricorn can get to the top of the mountain and always looks for another mountain to climb, but Capricorn climbed a mountain that was already built. Aquarius, right after Capricorn, comes in, ruled by Uranus, and says, why don't we create something new altogether? Instead of just repeating and building on what's already been here. Saturn helps you just create more physical reality.
Let me go with me on this. I just want to bounce something off you in the moment here that's fun. What do you think about that? Really, what's occurring is that once the moon showed up, it showed that we were as a species ready to go to the next level. And what the moon acts as an amplifier for the energies that we maybe have taken longer to assimilate, discover, figure out in the form of the planets that are around us or in our space or whatever. And really what happens is that the moon amplifies those energies, but it rolls through the line as we ascend. What it feels like now is that this Saturn bullshit's coming to an end. And I think that we'd all sort of agree with that. Now, it was the barrier between the fixed, the 3D, the all of that, and what you would consider the 5D or that next gap. You being Chiron is here to usher us into that. And maybe it's not that it fixed to that one and then it's only beaming that. Maybe they brought the moon here as an amplifier and we're working our way through the planets. And right now it's switching over to Uranus and amplifying that energy.
I like where you're going with that. I do believe that the moon, if it's amplifying, or I don't believe it's just Saturn that is connected to that in some way. I believe that's just what we've found, and that's the planet that would have the because in Vedic astrology or traditional astrology, Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto don't exist. If you talk to a Vedic astrologer today, they'll tell you that those planets don't matter. They don't have any influence. So, which is complete bullshit. And because how could they not? There's a lack of logic there. It's just that system, it doesn't update. It's not evolving. Okay.
It's
It's
kind of like how
staying traditional.
Christians want to make fun of gay people, but it's only mentioned twice in the Bible and it's actually a mistranslation. They'll
Mistranslated. I
eat
just told
shrimp
somebody that
cocktail,
today
but
in a
they'll eat
reading.
shrimp cocktail like crazy, but it's mentioned 8
Yes,
times in the Bible not to do that. They pick and choose.
they absolutely do pick and choose. And so I just as people do with astrology as well. And I think that every planetary energy interfaces with the moon because the moon is the closest thing to us. And so there is a field of energy, just like the, oh my God, it just left my brain. I hate when that happened. The Van Allen belt.
Yeah.
So there's these bands of energy, these
Firmament.
guards at the door, these bouncers, if you will. Okay. And the moon definitely interfaces with all of them. But I find that I think it's very interesting that the moon and Saturn have this whole um, concept, or this whole experience happening together because of how we have related moon and Saturn together in astrology for thousands of years. Like, I have moon opposite Saturn in my chart. Exactly. Moon in Leo at 6, Saturn in Aquarius at 6. And so moon opposite Saturn is a very specific placement, and it's not a great placement because it restricts, they say, the emotional world or the emotional output. And I'm like, that that's not happening with me.
Yeah.
So I had to realize that anything that happens with the moon in your chart is what programming you have. There's a program running. All of it's a program, but the moon, there's this artificial program that's keeping you in a loop and a holding pattern. And the fact that moon is opposite Saturn in my chart causes me to beat myself up. Yes, it does. You're not doing, you got to work harder. It gives me a moon and Capricorn energy, but it's a program. It's not like my earth sign in Sagittarius, which is truly my inner world. When I tune into the earth sign of Sagittarius or the earth sign of Pisces and begin to describe that to you, it's kind of like, oh, well, shit, yeah. Because if you're Taurus sun, you have Scorpio energy in you, because Taurus and Scorpio are the same thing. Virgo and Pisces are the same thing. They're expressed in two opposite directions. Aries is I am, Libra is we are. Same thing, just looking at self or the other, but same experience happening. It's the same energy. So 5D astrology is not about creating binaries or oppositions. It's about harmonizing them and then bringing the Trinity back. So taking it to 13 signs rather than 12,
Yeah.
because you did come in to be a unique archetype in and of yourself, not a regurgitation of 12 archetypes in a specific ratio. That
Yeah.
was supposed to be an aspect of you. And that was, there are density levels that can only hold that. Now we're moving out of that. So it's not that they were wrong or astrologers have been wrong. I'm saying that was right. Just like there will be laws of physics within this fifth dimensional experience that are different than the way we operate. Time will not move in a linear way. There will be no accidents. Everything is synchronicity. So it's just about updating and knowing that both are correct. Just like people ask me, well, is Vedic astrology or Western astrology more accurate? And I say, actually, you can overlay them.
Yeah.
They are different, but you can overlay them and use them together.
It's a yes and. This is what I love about
Yes.
it. It's dividing everything up and saying, no, 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 you can only play in that sandbox and you can only use the things in this book and you can only use the things in this book. And actually you hate each other because they're different, and separating them in that way. Keep us all arguing that Tower of Babylon idea, that's really what it did. It just divided all of the codes, it broke all the pyramids, and it broke all the cool shit.
Right, wrong, yes, no, black, white, good, bad, duality.
Yeah.
Bring it back into yes, yes,
And
all of
yeah,
it can
yes
be there.
and
Yes,
yes and.
and yes, and yes, and
It's we're realizing the 6 and 9 observation is what it is. It's that two people yelling at the different things from their perspective, but we are now merged into the one that can see both, and both can see from each other's perspective that they're both correct.
yes.
Okay, I want to show you one more thing because I've got sort of this stuck in my crawl here. I just want to ask you a question, and because you're fun. Okay, so let's say maybe that this is what this is. So let's say that Saturn, you know what this is, and you just told us about it. What does Jupiter represent in the charts, if you don't mind me asking?
Jupiter is about expansion. Jupiter is a teacher energy, a guru energy, and Jupiter is all. When I look at Jupiter in your chart, I'm looking to see your higher mind. So, um, you notice Mercury over there. Mercury rules Gemini, and Gemini is the opposite sign of Sagittarius. Both of them love information. One loves details, Gemini. The other one loves the big picture, Sagittarius. One loves to stay in its local environment, Gemini. One loves to travel the world, Sagittarius. But they're the same energy, constantly one going within, one going without for information, 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 learning, knowledge. Jupiter is about knowledge as well, but in your chart, it's about belief systems. What are the way, how do you frame your outlook on life? I have Jupiter in Leo, which colors the way that my belief systems. That's why my belief systems can have a lot to do with creativity or especially me and how it affects my life. Jupiter is also about long-term travel. There's many things that it represents, but it's really about your outlook, and it represents the higher mind, just as Sagittarius does, where Mercury represents the lower mind. So where Mercury is what takes in information, stores it, memorizes it, compartmentalizes it. Jupiter is a little bit, Jupiter in traditional astrology ruled Sagittarius and Pisces. They're Jupiter is the first of the truly spiritual planets because Jupiter represents philosophy and religion as well, which are belief systems. How do you take what you've learned and create a belief system around it? Because Jupiter also represents luck, wealth, and abundance. So Jupiter has a lot to do with like the law of attraction. And because it's your belief systems that are bringing those things about, it's what you believe in and what you hold sacred to you in your belief system. That is how you view this physical reality from a higher perspective. Where's all it going? What's it mean?
So, what does Mars mean?
Mars is So Mars is the last of the inner planets, and Mars is a very masculine energy, and it's named after the god of war and rules Aries. So Mars is about how you physically express your energy, your mannerisms, how you take action on things, sex, physical energy, physical stamina, that sort of thing. Like I have Mars in Leo, so there's a grandeur to the way that I express myself physically. Mars is also how we express anger, rage, aggression, or that kind of, it's a masculine energy, that output of energy. And so when I go to do something, it's about me. I want it because I want it, and I want to do it in a big dramatic way. That's a very easy way to put it. But Mars is is also about physical energy. I have Mars in the first house in Leo, so I can pretty much push myself to do anything if my ego wants it. And I'm also an ego manifester in human design, so there's a correlation there as well.
Bam. God, you're awesome. Thank you for answering all this because I'm just
I
curious
love
about
this.
You're just doing so great. If you don't mind, while we're on a roll here, Venus.
So, Venus is the second one from the sun. And so there you have your solar consciousness, and then you have Mercury, which is that mind. And then you have Venus, which is that heart energy. So, I want you to look at it kind of like, so you've got the sun, and then and the sun, I don't consider the sun to be masculine. I think it's both. It's masculine and feminine. It takes in energy. It's a portal. It's a black hole, and it also it exudes light and warmth and radiation. Mercury is masculine. Venus is feminine. Earth is feminine. Mars is masculine. Do you see the flow or the pattern there? There's a kind of system. Now Venus, being a feminine energy, has a lot to do with your heart, and Venus rules Taurus and has a lot to do with money because Venus represents value systems. So Jupiter and Venus are the two that are associated with finances or money. Jupiter expands it, brings more opportunity and wealth, because Jupiter is excess. Jupiter is the most amazing benefic planet. We all love Jupiter, but his shadow side is that he can be a guru. He can know everything, and not need any more information. There's an arrogance that can come about with Jupiter. The other benefic planet that we all just love is Venus, and Venus is about beauty, harmony. People think that Venus rules relationships in your chart, and it does not. Juno does, and Juno is within that asteroid belt that you're looking at right there. Juno rules Libra. That's Ceres, and Juno's somewhere else in there.
We'll call
But
it this one.
that actually is Ceres, though. Ceres is an asteroid that's larger than Pluto. So to not count these asteroids is actually really illogical. But Venus rules how you relate to your experience, what your heart wants. There's desire there. Mars is physical desire. Once Venus has decided, I find that attractive, Mars is what moves you toward it. Okay. Now, it's a chain reaction. First, you have the thought, then the feeling, and then the action. And that is where we have these interplanetary energies. Venus is how you show love and receive love, affection, what you want, affection wise, or how you treat your loved ones or relationships. Some of that is there, but it's also your relationship with physical objects. Taurus is known to be the most physically possessive or materialistic because it's ruled by Venus. Venus is all about like your style, your aesthetics, what you find beautiful, what you find pleasurable. Venus has a lot to do with pleasure, food, nice things, and money because it's about your value systems. Venus shows me what you really value, where there are belief systems, but then there are value systems, and that's where Venus comes in.
Fascinating. And this is what I'm looking at here is sort of a small scale level of ascension or sort of the hero's
You're
journey.
exactly right. That's exactly what's happening. It's also happening that way within the zodiac chart. Aries represents getting into the body, Pisces represents getting out of the body, transcendence, going back to spirit. The entire zodiac is a life cycle.
Yeah. And it seems they're again represented here. So it's this as above, so below and constant
Yes.
flow.
Yes.
And
Yes.
like you said, here's a real physical example with these inners, and then you sort of get a gap between the two, and then you get all mental and ethereal out here
And there
with
are many aspects of this that were downloaded by ancient astrologers before they knew there was an asteroid belt. Um, demarcating or marking the separation between Mars and Jupiter like that. Those were the inner planets, those were the outer planets. They didn't have all this extra information necessarily. But I just find that I love that the planet of expansion is the one that is the biggest one,
yeah.
big ass Jupiter. And then you've got Saturn over there, constricted in some way, okay, restricted and held in. And then you've got Uranus over there
Just fuck y'all.
doing almost mimicking. There is still a
A mockery.
restriction there. There's a molecule energy that's happening. And then of course Neptune and Pluto. And the whole thing is poetic. The entire thing is completely symbolic and poetic, and even down to Chiron being the rainbow bridge and its placement. And I will tell you, the person who named Chiron in 1977 was not an astrologer and had no and really didn't know much about the mythology of Chiron the centaur. It was actually his daughter who named Chiron, or that asteroid Chiron. And once you name it that, it is. I do not believe they named it by happenstance. I believed it was channeled.
Yeah,
They
for
just
sure.
don't
So
know. And even if it was their choice, the minute they named it and the minute we all agreed upon it, it held that archetypal energy.
yeah, it instantly represents that. Just how
Yes.
the lizard charts, whatever, will deliberately name things a certain thing
Yes.
to apprehend its energy.
Yes, because once you name something, you reduce the potential of anything else and it begins to hold that energy. Just like you can put your crystals in a big bowl of psilocybin for several days, and that crystal will carry the spirit or the energy of psilocybin.
Cool. And now I'm thinking with this bridge and all of this being representative, the moon does play a huge part in this somehow. Now, it's also interesting you mentioned the asteroid belt. Are you familiar with the mythology of what this perhaps used to be?
Um, I have heard many different
Like Zachariah
theories.
Sitchin's Tiamat, you know?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
What do you think of that? That it was a planet and actually its destruction is what maybe while the moon came in, it needed to destroy this. Some sort of battle came on. And this was like our guardian planet, maybe, and it got taken out. And then this moon was installed to then apprehend all of this. Or it
Let me
was an
just
evil.
ask everybody something. Let me just ask everybody this. Why are there so many craters on the moon, but we don't see that on Ceres? We don't, and the Ceres is just as round as the moon. Ceres is not misshapen like these other asteroids, okay? Some of them are very planetoid like. There, and I'm sure there's craters many places. There's something off about the moon. There's I want to give more information, but something just came through and I don't know how to put it into words.
While you're thinking about it,
I don't want to think
Inky
about
was
it.
the good one. Enlil's the dude that we're like,
Yeah, that's yes. Inky,
I just wanted to clear
good
that up.
guy, Enlil, bad guy. Thank you.
Yeah. How do you want to
And I
remember
don't
that?
think he was bad either. But
Yeah. Just, played that role, right?
yes, yes. But I believe that that is absolutely that is not just possible, but I believe in that. And I also believe that some of the asteroids did just wander in, like Chiron, because there are some asteroids, different asteroids are some of them are asteroid energies and others are centaurs, which means they have comet energies as well. So like they're half comet, half asteroid. So just know that some of them came about from different times and places. Some I believe could have been a planet that was here that was destroyed in some way.
Damn. This is serious, by the way.
Yes.
What's up with
And
this?
it's bigger. Ceres is bigger than Pluto.
I mean, this is NASA, so it's all CG on lies. But what's going on with it? What are they trying to tell us it's doing?
What?
The
Understand.
with that light, NASA. This is NASA, so we know it's bullshit. So I'm not going to click on it. But see a little cube right here. Saturn.
I did not know that Ceres had a bright light on it like that.
Well,
I
we
didn't
have
know
to
that.
check it out, don't we?
Yeah,
It's
let's check it out.
Ceres makes up
That's
a third
awesome.
of the asteroid's total
Total
mass.
mass, yes, it's huge, but it's still
Or
far smaller than Earth. That's a that's a point that I would like to make is that the Earth's moon is larger than Ceres, and um, I really I would just want everyone to know that every other moon in our solar system is tiny, and those planets are much larger than us, and their moons are much smaller than ours. Our moon does not fit the scientific ratio that the rest of the solar system has adhered to. And the the size of the moon, I mean, in and of itself, should bring about questions for people. And why our planet would have such a ratio that is imbalanced when it comes to the ratio of the moon toward the Earth.
yeah, it doesn't make sense, and it makes sense with all the occult rituals that
Yes,
occur,
yes,
and so it
yes.
seems so much more sus, as the kids say. Are we still saying that sus?
Sus. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. Just want to make
Let's
sure.
do it. Yeah.
So Sirius does not have any moons. Doesn't have any
No,
rings.
no.
Interesting though, this bioluminescence, element to it. It almost looks like, I mean, of course, like the Death Star or something super dope with this thing on here. Like it's queuing up and firing super awesome love our way, and we're just like, yeah, give it.
Yeah, yeah. So, on top of Earth being the sign that rule or the planet that rules Cancer, Ceres, if because multiple planets can co-rule a sign, but
Sure.
Ceres is also assigned to the planet or the sign Cancer because Ceres is the Earth Mother, and Ceres shows me in your chart how you nurture yourself, how you parent yourself or parent others, how you parent your children. It also has to do with loss and grief and acceptance, and how you move through the natural stages of life and that sort of thing. Um, so there, there's just no need for the moon. Now, I use the moon in astrology to help someone know what their programming is so that they can start at the source of the infection and work their way out.
That yes, exactly. And like
Because
your level of go ahead.
well, we have been influenced by the moon since we incarnated because we existed within this time that it's been here. So just to abandon it would be irresponsible as well in the chart because you have to identify kind of a false programming. I have Mars in Leo, Venus in Leo, Jupiter in Leo. I also have the moon in Leo. So that Leo energy is going to show up in me regardless, but the moon in Leo energy, I often find that it's people's moon signs that I have issues with. Okay. Like um, the moon, in, a lot of moon in Leo people dislike me or are very jealous of me. And I've dealt with especially males who have moon in Leo. And like my dad, my ex boyfriend, every guy friend I've ever had that I had to cut out of my life, especially gay men, all had moon in Leo. And I believe there was something there that did not allow them to um, be themselves around me because there was a program running that they felt threatened because they wanted that spotlight. There's this inner need for this attention and spotlight and to be the one that is worshiped. And so when that comes together, it can be a battle, and I just didn't express it always in that way, the way that they were. And I and also they were like they could tell that I was more magical than them. Okay, that was my moon and Leo working. But it is a program. I will tell you, the biggest issue I have in my chart is my moon and Leo, and it always has been. The biggest issue I've had anytime, I always, if you look at my phone going back 8, 9 years, the full moon, the new moon, the first quarter, fourth quarter, all of them are programmed into my phone to let me know how much melatonin I need to take or how much CBD I need to take. I am sick of it. I do not believe women should be ovulating every single month, that it should be that painful. There's aspects of it that are related or aspected by the moon, and they're so, if the moon is this wonderful, amazing being that helps us manifest. I do believe that it has a purpose, and I also believe we could possibly take it back or kind of reprogram it in some way. I believe that's possible if anything else is possible, but we first have to talk about, okay, we first have, there's a moth. Okay. Yes, thank you. We are like moths to a flame when it comes to the moon.
Yeah.
There's this like magnetism that it has, and we can't stop but wanting to adhere to it, or let it control us, or let it have some type of effect on us, as if we have to wait for there's so many schools of thought that factor in the moon, that when all this came in, I was just like, what do I do with this? Because it's actually making a lot of sense to me. And as a Cancer rising, someone who's supposed to be a moon child, and I always told myself I was and was proud of that, I still was always the one who would have to cancel readings or call into work because there was a full moon.
Mm.
Every time I had a cacao ceremony last year, it was on a full moon. I did that on purpose because that was what I was taught to do by one of my mentors, was like, have it on the full moon because the energy, and it just made sense to me. So I made sure it was on that day, because your emotions are most heightened. That'll get everything to come to the surface, I thought. And absolutely, they were beautiful ceremonies, and I don't think anything bad happened. However, I believe it's possible that you can release something on the full moon and then it just keeps coming back because you're manifesting it. Okay.
Yes.
Because it's bringing about a magnetism that is intercepting with your natural interfacing with the laws of the universe. I just want people to consider that it is possible. It's not only possible, it is very much a fact that we didn't go to the moon the way you thought we did. And
What?
it's very much a fact that physicists have known for 100 years that the surface of the moon is made of titanium, neptunium, uranium, and all of them are very perplexed. There's many texts that show physicists saying we don't know the implications of what this means, but this does call for us to change our perspective on what this moon is. And not only did NASA hear it ringing like a bell, and I know fuck NASA, but when we landed on the moon, because I believe it's possible somebody went there. It's possible. It's just what we saw in those videos was a Stanley Kubrick masterpiece.
Yeah.
So not only that, they said that it rang like a bell, okay, and that it did that for 30 minutes as if it had a hydraulic system in it and that it was hollow. But there are other physicists that have already proven that it's hollow. You can prove that based on its mass and its size and its weight. So what does that even mean? So it's made of metal, it's hollow, and you only ever see one side of it. Just start asking questions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, because it's sus. It's absolutely sus. And so I think your suspicions about this are correct, because it seems like a bunch of bullshit. Because what if on the other side of it, what if it's not 3D at all, or what if it's not a place you can go at all? And you and I've talked about this, and we enjoyed that on your amazing show that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But what if it's just an image that just shows you, like
Right,
talk
right.
about the luminary, and then behind it, it's like some huge spaceship that's like sticking way the fuck out. It's
Yes, I
some
believe
crazy
that
tunnel.
is possible. And people listening who are like, these guys are fucking crazy.
Not this
I
shit.
would have thought I was too at one time. And this is really just supposed to incite magic and wonder in you, not
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah.
But there's actually something brilliant and magical about there, possibly that it's fake and it's being projected, and that it that it glitches sometimes. And
Yes. You want
yes,
to pull that
yeah,
video?
let's watch it.
Okay. But keep talking about how weird it is while I do that.
Yeah, so I think that on top of everything else, the main point I want to bring everyone back to is the fact that Saturn is not your father. The sun is, because the sun is God in our solar system. That's why the Egyptians called it Horus, the sun god. Okay, that is Jesus with his crown of thorns, his sun rays. So I want everyone to tune back into that energy and realize that you're standing on mama. She gave birth to you. This is your mother earth. And it's about taking that back. I get really worked up when I think about it, because I'm like, the moon appropriated Earth's role. We allowed that to happen. And it makes so much more sense to me that the planet that you're on and the celestial body that holds all the light in the center of the solar system, the nucleus, would be interfacing together in a very personal way. That sun and earth sign, that outer and inner experience. And that this moon comes in and intercepts that and creates a program that runs. People say the moon is your inner world. It's what's going on in the inside. You're more like your moon sign than you are like your sun sign, actually. And I think they say that because the sun is more of the ego. There's a kind of conscious focus with the sun of being something in the external world, where I believe your earth sign is more of your inner world, your inner child. What's going on deep within your home. Cancer rules the home. Earth, not the moon. I never lived on the moon. So there's certain things like that that just, while it seems like duh, it's just many people are just so programmed and connected to the moon. And I think that it's also a part of the fact that it does create a rhythm and a cycle that keeps going. And so people can just keep riding those waves, even though the current keeps taking them under and taking them back out. And then they keep riding the wave back in and then back out. So there's a looping that happens. And remember, Earth is a solidity. There's a grounded nature to this. So there's some of this that I'm still exploring. I am totally open to the moon being taken over by the Pleiadians and turned into rainbow crystalline light. And if the moon ever starts speaking light language at me in Malaki Haka, and I'm totally down for it to be a good thing. I didn't want this to be this way, but I felt a responsibility to look into it. And then as I tuned more into it, it was like truth, 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 truth. Where, yeah, I definitely would like to, because the moon does have an effect because it's there, but what effect it's having, I want you to ask yourself that. Because some people have told me, oh, I don't ever feel anything around moons, or I feel great on full moons. I said, do you feel not great on new moons? And they're like, no, I feel great. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not the person to ask. I can tell you right now that we're approaching a full moon now in the next few days.
Great.
And right after the waxing gibbous on the 26th, I began to sleep less. I began to go to bed much later. And I thought to myself, what the hell? Because I don't follow the moon anymore. I specifically tapped out of it. And I've been doing this for a while. Spirit actually asked me to not follow moon phases about 2 years ago. I didn't know what that meant. I just thought that they were wanting me to create my own, like to not have to not know what was going to happen or report on it as much, so that there wasn't confirmation bias, or I wasn't creating that experience, and that I was actually having an organic experience that I could refer back to after it had happened. But now I believe that there was just that this is where this is going. And I had someone reach out to me on Instagram and say, how dare you? The moon has been taken over by the Galactic Federation and has been reprogrammed with rainbow crystal light. And I said, you fucking Care Bear, get the fuck out of here. And because to me, I was just like, I know your guides may have said that, but what this is turning into is anybody can just say anything. And we cannot, because maybe in her reality that happened that way. And so I want to choose that so I can have that. I want to be a Care Bear.
So but maybe that's like the thing, right? Maybe that is their way of interpreting it, which we always hold open. And I know that we're just having fun here. That's their way of interpreting it, and that it appeared to them that way because because when you said that, as silly as it sounds, it sounds like there is been an apprehension. But again, I agree with you that the moon feels like it plays a role here, and that's what we're talking about. And so it's been sus because it's been taken over by something, and so it's really been misused by, like, let's say the reptilians or the Greys or something, but that this idea that we've banished now all the Greys and reptilians from Earth, you've heard of this, we're all super pumped about it. And allegedly they're absolutely gone, which means I would think that that would extend to the control of the moon as well, which now let's say that maybe what they were interpreting was that the control of the moon is being handed over as this amplification device. And now, just like the older structures that they talk about in the Tatarian idea, how they were really resonant chambers and they were energy producers and they did all these cool things, we just have lost the ability to function or turn them on, or they've been broken intentionally. That maybe now there's sort of an age of enlightenment where it's coming all back to the things that we should have. And what we've been used to is shit just being broke and just kind of dealing with whatever rickety ass shit. But really, because of whatever, now it feels that everything has changed. And maybe it is have to do with this time period. And so then you ask yourself, well, is it like a shift change? Is it on purpose? Is there sort of a deliberate apprehension of the moon? But it's not really an apprehension. It just sends those signals down to give us this freedom of karma. Because when you mentioned Ben earlier and this Lyran thing that he tapped into, one of the stories I've heard is that really all life on Earth is because Earth is a mirror to another planet that was destroyed. And so the karma from the planet needed to move somewhere else. And Lyran is brought up whenever this is talked about, not necessarily crash, but also maybe could have been, again, passed down or interpreted that way. Then you think, okay, well, maybe it's just karmaic here. And the moon acts as an amplifier to help us work through that. When we talk about like no bad guy here, had Pat Mahan on last week, we talk about this idea of everything being here for you, even like the shitty things from our perspective, right?
Yeah.
Even in our lives, you go up and you have like a traumatic childhood or something, you get on the other side of it, you're like, man, I'm glad I had that because that was awesome. It's taught me so much. I've learned so much. I've grown so much because of it. So maybe now it's switched. We've learned enough. Guy is like, okay, we're done with that. Humans are ready to move on to the next level, or at least a certain percentage of them are. And perhaps this is what the 3D, 5D thing is. What do you think?
I believe you're onto something there, and
We'll let it develop.
I don't think that the moon
Idea
has to
about
be
the
a
moon.
bad thing. I think that there are
No.
many options for us to choose here. I just want to I
I
just don't think we're ready to ascend if we're waiting for the full moon to manifest something.
and I'm with you on the cycles of the moon thing. I think that that's a great thing you point out there, and so thank you for that. You're adorable. Check this shit out. This is Crow 777. Everybody check out, or I'd never tell you what to do, but I recommend you look up crow777radio.com. Crow spelled with 2 R's. And this man filmed this. He's an avid astronomer, and he has amazing telescopes. And he filmed what is referred to as the lunar wave. Now, this is why I think that maybe the moon's not a place you can go, because it looks like it's rendering. Look at that thing. Now, this is a little unstable shot. There is another one that I saw here that I wanted to pull up, and I believe this is. So
When
this
you
is
say
Crow.
it's not a place you can go, do you believe that it
I don't.
is a projection in our subconscious, or it isn't actually physically there?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Maybe just like space itself isn't what we think, and right outside of whatever
Right.
we consider the
Right.
Van Allen radiation belts or low Earth
Uh-huh.
orbit or something like that, it's not
Yeah.
exactly what we think.
Yeah.
And so this is fascinating. The lunar wave thing that pops up. Another thing that's sus fuck about the moon is we just have about 15, 17 minutes here. I just want to make sure we can talk about your retreats. Is this business right here, dude? The mares on the moon, or whatever these depths of black that Galileo called mares, which is Latin for seas, because he thought it was another planet with a bunch of bodies of water there. If you look at them, people have noticed here that they actually reflect the continents of the Earth as on the Asimov flat Earth map. And I don't care if you're a flat earther or not, we just talk about the ideas here. So what's
Right.
interesting about this is if you look at it like this, then one of my favorite damn things to talk about is this extra land bit, man.
Mm-hmm.
All this extra stuff. What's going on out here? This would be easy to hide just by telling everybody we lived on a ball and stuff. But
Yeah.
again, maybe the moon in the sky is sort of the firmament above reveals his handiwork.
Yeah. The dome.
Psalms 19:2, that's what's on von Braun, the father of NASA's tombstone, is Psalms 19:2. So maybe this is the considered the firmament above that reveals his handiwork. Maybe what we've been told here is really for us to figure out and to break out of. Again, it's not a flat earth conversation, though I do find it fascinating, and I do think that there's something majorly different going on. But the Japanese had a map centuries ago that relayed the Earth as it is from what the moon says it is, as well as what looks like to be a shit ton of extra land. And it looks like the land masses equal double what we're aware of here. And this is what I think is one of the best secrets out. I think this is one of the biggest apprehensions, what we are, what we're on, what this place is. and that there's more cool shit to discover. So that's really my question for you, Christopher. Because you love the planets, did it bother you when you found out that the Earth was flat?
No,
Mm.
because um, they can be flat and spherical at the same time. I believe it's a collapsing of waveforms. I don't believe that it has to be one or the other, just like we've been talking about. I believe that the flat Earth theory is a perception of reality, because the people who existed on the flat Earth or knew of it are maybe people who have interfaced with Bigfoot and fairies and elementals, which are real and very much exist, and they exist in the Earth and in parallel versions of the Earth. So I do believe that there's parallel versions of our solar system, our galaxy, our universe that operates in different types of geometry, possibly, or in a different way. If you think of a sphere is just a flat surface that's folded in on itself on all sides. So really, maybe the Earth actually is flat, and when we reach that fifth dimensional consciousness. I don't think that's how it works. I'm just using that as an example. And maybe it's because everything. Nope. I understand. The flat Earth is more of a parallel version of Earth.
Interesting. It's just a
Is
different
what it looks
perspective.
like.
It's another way to view it, right? Because it'll
It's
render
another way
that
to
way.
view it, but it exists. I believe that it exists, kind of like a Narnia.
Mm.
Okay, there is this going through the wardrobe. It's another dimensional uh, plane of existence, and I do believe that there can be. Um, we're creating this and all agreeing upon it. So we're using different types of geometry. There are ways that it does not have to be a central point inside of a sphere that everything is being pulled toward by gravity. That's one choice that we have all agreed upon and made in this universe. There's multiverse. So I believe what you're getting into is multidimensionality and multiverse theory when we talk about flat Earth. It isn't that it's not sphere, it's that it can be, just like in your dreams, it can be flattened out and turned into different things.
Yes, and
Yes, and it
yes,
has to be yes and.
yeah,
Yes and equals possibility and potential. Yes, no limits the potential, and source is limitless. So you're allowed to have no, but it's not the truth. You're
that's why.
allowed to have, you're allowed to say this doesn't exist, but that's not true. There is something here. There's more here than there is there.
I
And
love
for those listening, I'm talking about the space in between my fingers and my physical fingers. I always say ad nauseum, there is more information in between my fingers than there are in it or of it. So, and that kind of stuff just makes so much sense to me.
it does. And these are the kind of things that you're talking about on your new podcast that I'm so excited to be a part of. And thank you so much for inviting me. The Chronicles of Chiron. Tell us about that.
So, the Chronicles of Chiron is actually a name of a retreat, and it was actually a podcast I started several years ago with a friend of mine, and so I'm bringing it back because speaking of Narnia, I didn't even think about it that way, but that's where I got that from. It was originally Chronicles of Chiron, the Lion, the Witch, and the Healer, because she and I have Leo energies. We're both witches, and so that was kind of the original idea. But then I realized once I realized after that, and that was actually before I realized how Chyronic I actually am. Like I remember my astrologer telling me 10 years ago, you are Chiron. You're an embodiment of Chiron. And I was like, what the fuck is Chiron? I could only take what I could take at each point in my journey. Okay. I was like, I'm still working through, you know, Uranus and Neptune and Pluto and how that shows up. And like, I just didn't have a place for it yet. And then of course it just kept coming in and coming in. And then I had a spiritual awakening, and the once here's what happened after I created Chronicles of Chiron. I had a dream that my name was on a chalkboard, kind of like, and it was actually kind of mimicking the movie Matilda when the chalk starts writing by itself. It's kind of
Yeah.
what it was like, and that's what the feeling it gave me. So I remember seeing my name on the chalkboard, but then suddenly, like Harry Potter or something, all the letters just kind of folded off and started to float around off of the board and started to move around like this. And then I woke up, and I guess you would call that like an anagram or some, this is probably not the right word, but something like that, where you take it and mix it up and it's a different thing. And so I was like, okay, let me just see what's going on here. The words Chiron and heal are in my full name. So once I realized and once I saw that, I was like, none of this is real. Like, everything has been leading up to this point, and the fact that the word Chiron and heal are in my name, I just thought, I create my own reality. I created that. I'm doing all of this. Everything is connected. Everything is as symbolic as a fantasy movie and a beautiful book. And I realized, holy shit, I am more than this Chiron archetype, but I came here to embody that for people. And I also came to evolve that archetype as well, and quite literally. So, Chronicles of Chiron is an exploration of all kinds of healing modalities. It's about raising vibration. I'll be talking about 5D astrology on there. I'll be talking about ascension and awakening a lot. And all of my guests are sound healers, Reiki practitioners, um, uh, multimillionaire business coaches. It doesn't matter. If you empower people, raise their vibration, and are actively seeking to ascend in your process, you're coming on my show. That's how I look at it, because um, it's a gathering place of, just like expanding reality, it's just a little bit more focused on the ascension and awakening process, and specifically healing modalities and the transmuting of energy. But it's about consciousness. It's we go all kinds of places, but it is also a chronicle of my experience in this lifetime as Chiron.
Well, you're an outstanding host, and of course you would be. I mean, you're just meant for this stuff. So you just sit there and it's such an easy thing. You know, the great ones make it look easy, right? So speaking of healing, you do retreats, and I want to hear about these. So you've taken it from healing online and in the non-physical to bringing folks together in the physical, and you've had some amazing
Yes.
experiences. And I know Ben Carroll's been a part of some of those as well as
Yes,
facilitating
yes.
some music and magic. And just tell us about that, dude.
Yeah, so I've been involved with plant medicine for 10 years, and I've been running retreats, or um, gosh, I've been to 30 retreats just myself, if you can believe that, as a participant. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you all out there are like, I've done mushrooms hundreds of times. No, these were retreats. These were big experiences that involved going somewhere and different types of medicine, that sort of thing. Um, so, my retreats, ever since I was a little kid, I've always had parties. My dad called me the master of ceremonies when I was 6 years old.
It's awesome.
And I am the master of ceremonies, and I am the MC. But the I always had parties growing up. I always had parties at my apartments. They were always themed. I would make music soundscapes. I would create playlists. I would have signature drinks. It was always I just love to get people together, have a good time, create experiences for people. So it kind of just was natural that that was going to happen. And so basically, these are multidimensional healing experiences with other light workers and star seeds. Yes, we use plant medicine. I currently hold 13 medicines in the Chyronic Healing Medicine Profile. So there are many different characters that we encounter on our way into the woods. Yes, ayahuasca is one of them on our way to grandmother's house. And there's many different characters that we work with over the time that we're together. But we also use shamanic drumming and soul retrieval and reading into the Akashic records. Um, I have a Reiki practitioner that gives everyone gets Reiki, private Reiki healing during the experience. Ben Carroll comes and does a unique, customized, channeled sound journey experience that is 2 hours, that is specifically focused and in alignment with the, like, when he comes to looking for Lilith, he's bringing through the energy of transmuting shadow and the shadow work and going into that deep experience. Um, These are held usually at luxury cabins or here at my retreat center. This, you will not be lying on the floor somewhere being eaten up by mosquitoes in the heat, in the humidity. That is old. So if you are a king or a queen or both, like myself, and you want to accelerate and heal yourself and find your soul family, and you feel the call as you're listening to this and you feel the magnetism, you're one of us. I am not meant for everybody. Everyone that I've encountered, about 90% of them are part of my star family. So although I would love to serve everyone, I'm here to serve people that are ready for that and are on that level. And these are life altering and life changing experiences, even without the medicine. So it's about basically what I've created, and what we have created is a portal. These retreats are portals. Ceremonies, all ceremonies are portals, but we're basically recreating what the fifth dimensional experience would be like here and now, so you can practice in it and heal in that container.
It's just so good. It's just so good. You've got your place in Atlanta. Tell us about the one you were just recently on, please.
Yeah, so I took about 10 um, light workers, star seeds. These, a lot of them are, all of them, my soul family, star family. And on this retreat specifically, which was a couple weeks ago, was in Sedona, Arizona. And Spirit told me, you're going to have a retreat in Sedona, Arizona, and you need to get all your best people. So all the people that were able to go went. It was different than my other retreats, which are kind of open to the public. This was for those people that are on another level. They are healers, mystics, shamans, all people I met at one time who told me, I'm not psychic, or I wish I could do what you do. And now they're body code practitioners and Reiki healers. And in the matter of 6 months, making killer money and channeling shit in these experiences. It was so incredible, not only to be on those vortices, because we did a retreat on a vortex. We did a journey with a shaman on a vortex. Just being in Sedona was incredible in that energy. And so I know why, because a lot of them were getting downloads that they wanted to move there, or that they were from there, or that they're remembering things. So I knew that there was a reason to go there. But it was so incredible. Every time I have a retreat, we all lay down out in the grass so that we can look for the ships, because I call them in. I call the star family in, and they always come. Usually there's about maybe 5 at the most. There were over 30 that we saw, and we even captured one on, or several on camera. Um, I wish he had had it set a different way so so he had it on video, because it just looks like a streak of light. I'm like, we'll get there. That was a great start. But there were 30 of them. Several of them stopped and powered up and got really bright so that we didn't think it was a satellite. You know how we do. We gaslight ourselves. But that sort of experience, there was a lot of remembering, a lot of ancestral stuff. But what Spirit is having me do is, they're very on board with the plant medicine thing. They know that the plant spirits are a key to our ascension process. They also know at some point, like myself, I don't need to take the medicine to go on a journey. I don't need the medicine anymore, because the medicine is in me. I am the medicine. So these experiences teach you what your medicine is and how to exude your own healing medicine. But also, once you work with these plant spirits in this way, that you have access to them from that point forward. So I can bring in the spirit of Wachuma, the grandfather, and the spirit of Iboga, and the spirit of ayahuasca into your experience, even if you're just working with cacao, because there's an agreement there. And for anyone listening, I just want to say this, because I feel called to. You can do this type of work and be white. You can do this kind of work and not have spent 30 years training before you got here. This is old stuff. There's a fine line between everyone just having a God complex and thinking and just being disrespectful to cultures, and not having respect for the people who put in the time and the work. Sure, maybe it took 10 years for a neurosurgeon to get where they were. Maybe it took 20 years. This is different. I don't need to memorize anything. I don't need to, just like doctors today, wouldn't it be amazing if your doctor could just scan your body and find the blockage without having to run thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of unnecessary tests? So the Eastern traditions understand how this works. I don't have to know anything. I just have to let it move through me. And I have spent enough years questioning myself and not believing in myself. And if you have to, and you've earned it. And I've been through enough trauma and I've earned it. I've been through enough healing experiences and I've earned it. So, but I didn't have to. I was worthy from the beginning. And so I want everyone to know this work is calling you. You are being called not just to plant medicine, but to heal. But if you are being called, I work with people outside of the plant medicine experience as well. But I do find these plant spirit energies want so badly to work with people, clear their system, raise their vibration, and you don't need to meditate for 12 hours to get there. Joe Dispenza knows what he's talking about. And yes, you can get there with breath and deep meditation, or you can work with this beautiful plant spirit teacher that wants to guide you and has its own personality. Mama Cacao, Grandmother Ayahuasca, Godfather Iboga, and our magic mycelium mushroom teachers. There's this beautiful harmony and reconnection with nature that comes from it as well, that is so needed at this time. So know that it isn't a need, but if you have that desire, it is a beautiful experience. And you can meditate for 12 hours and work with the plant medicine. You can have it all.
Do you know what else is needed at this time? Christopher the Astromedium. And so we thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I was going to say a glass of water after that shit.
But we're actually wrapping up. So thank you guys.
Okay.
All of the ways to find him down in the show notes. Christopher, thank you so much for submitting.
Thank you. I appreciate you.